Hello. Okay, here's a talk about knowledge and different levels of knowledge. For example, just random datum or random pieces of information or data versus senior knowledge or applied knowledge. Whereas if you were to draw out a scale where at one end of the scale at zero, you would have total uncertainty and a confusion. Whereas if you drew it out infinitely at the end of the scale, you would have a total certainty regarding something. It would be this would be a high level of mastery. This would be something that would be talked about by any of the social clubs or even secret societies or religious sects, Tao, Zen Buddhism, Taoism. Many of the great religions carry, sort of talk about this kind of stuff. Some people think that, they attribute mastery to God, which is separate than self. Other ones seek to, enhance one's own personal control and responsibility and knowledge towards achieving ends. According to your own self-determinism. That's where different faiths do vary. Is that it's like how much of a role do you play? How as a person or as a spirit, and how or how much as a ghost, or how much of a role does a supreme being play? And what is and to what degree are you connected to the supreme being? Are you able to directly communicate with the supreme being, or are you the supreme being? Perhaps you are just your own, demigod or God or whatever. Every branch of thought or knowledge is some variance, or and they have their own particular emphasis on these different things. I'm not talking about this in terms of religious philosophy. What I'm talking about is in terms of competence. And when a person is at the bottom of the scale, he knows nothing. He is uncertain about the future, right? He doesn't know what's going to happen. Will I start at A and will I arrive at point B, right? He's just not sure. He doesn't have enough knowledge or data in order to apply and predict an outcome. So that's a person who is going to breed confusion and, inefficiency, right? At the other end of the spectrum, you would have like a Zen master, or someone who basically he looks like a psychic because he can predict the future. But even if he's like laying bricks, he knows enough about bricks and more to have no situations that come up that would be non-standard. So really, mastery in something is standardization of everything. And this is a certainty, okay? There are probably spiritual levels of certainty that are above that, but they're very personal and they're within your own space. So they're not really applied from going from point A to point B, because in the spiritual realm, there is no point B. It's all fucking point A, right? Okay, so, but anyways, we're going to talk about in the physical realm, going from point A to point B, and just knowing and having no doubts, okay? Having no reservation whether or not you will arrive at B. This has to, think about what it is that you do in your life. What are you good at? What do you do for money? What is it? You can measure the degree of certainty, where a total certainty would be almost magical. It would be almost like a guy who just wins way more often than not. Or a guy who he's well known to be highly skilled. He can be depended upon because he can control when it starts, when it continues, and when it finishes. And that's the anatomy of control. And that's basically all there is to certainty. If you want to boost your certainty, you can practice starting things, learning about how to start them, continuing, and then finishing. Doing is also a continuation. So people who can predict when something will be done or when something will be accomplished, are usually people who can be trusted. But there's also prediction as far as, when something will no longer be done. And I actually have my own thought about, well, everybody knows the saying, to be or not to be. That is the question. That is actually not the question, because in your own space, you're already at point A, and you don't need to be. You will basically do nothing but be. And so being is actually not the question. What really is the question is, are you going to come out of your space and get and go from point A to point B and do something with another person? That's actually the question. And so it's to do or not to do, okay, is the question, okay? And because a person cannot do anything else but be, unless you're one of these, ridiculous, or it's not ridiculous, but, or maybe you don't believe in God, or maybe you don't believe in yourself. But that's just like a big trick that you play on yourself anyways, because the trick is, of course, that you are immortal. And so you cannot be, now if you don't believe that, it's perfectly fine, but it's a big game, it's a big trick that a person plays on himself, right? But so anyways, so certainty and being good at something, if you look at people who are great at things that you're interested in, you'll notice that they're always certain, almost to the point where they can predict, where will it start? It will start here at 1 o'clock. It will continue until 2, and it will finish here, right? And then obstacles from A to B get handled, and people who are exceptionally good at something go from A to B, like they say, every time. Science got mixed up with this too, because they got, this is actually what Isaac Newton was really looking for, was that it's the application of a certainty to the physical world, right? And that was really what he was looking for. He wasn't trying to create some ridiculous situation where you could watch apples fall and have nothing to do with those apples, where you're a spectator. You have no, there's this one ridiculous aspect of modern science, but because if you force people to spectate, not speculate, spectate, to watch and to have no effect on the outcome of a scientific experiment, you're of course driving them out of it, and you're moving into authoritarianism, where you're saying, you're basically going, instead of you're going to Isaac Newton, you're asking him, did it fall? Can you tell me, did this fall? Did it go from point A to point B? You're the authority. Please observe for me. Please give me a substitute for my observation. Okay? And that's actually what science has become today. Okay? But 400 years ago, that's not what science was, and maybe even 200 years ago. Okay? It was a certainty that could be applied to life. You have to participate. You look, you could do it, right? So if you can clean a window, that's science. It's science if you're good at it and you can do it every time, okay? This is absolutely not understood by anyone in our culture, and that's why I know that our culture is in its current death throes. It's going out like Rome, and I find it upsetting, but actually just it really comes down to this. Can you go from point A to point B according to your own self-determinism? Can you start it when you say you can start it? Can you continue it or not continue it and stop it at will? If you can, you're a master of something. And this certainty is what all the scientists, all the religious people, all the masters, anyone who ever tried to give you self-improvement, okay, is basically trying to tell you this. No one can do something for you. You have to know. And it's not just a belief, it's a certainty. Okay, and that is the highest level that man can achieve on this plane. That is godliness, and it's not cleanliness that's next to godliness. It's actually the ability to go from A to B with certainty. Okay, so I'm feeling a little bit rantish on this, because I'm kind of just tired of all the dumb stuff. I'm tired of all the silliness and the nonsense. And you really run into all this kind of stuff, especially it's like, if someone can't apply something to life, their mind will appear broken. Like, they'll say things that make no sense because they don't know why what is the intention and what is the point B? What is the result that they're trying to achieve? Thank you so much for listening. Please tell me your thoughts, and have a great day.